Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Cloud Chats. This is a Twitch series where we explore the trends and the projects in open source cloud development. Cloud Chat is brought to you by the Eclipse Cloud Development Tools Working Group, but you'll probably just hear us refer to it as the ECD during this episode. You might know Eclipse from the desktop IDE, and that project continues, but this chat series is actually focused on the cloud development tools and supporting our next generation cloud native tools. I'm your host, Jesse Williams. When I'm not doing open source Twitch recordings, I'm a PMM at AWS, and today I'm joined by Sven Efftinge. He's the co-founder of GitPod. He also founded Thea and Open VSX registry. So Sven, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, hello.
Hi, Jesse.
It's good to have you. I've been looking forward to talking about Open VSX registry a little bit because it is one of the newer projects at the ECD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's hop right into it. For everyone who's not familiar with Open VSX, would you mind kind of giving a rundown on what the project is?
Sure. Yeah, Open VSX is a registry implementation for the VS Code extension file format or metadata format. So yeah, but that's basically it is. The implementation, and then there's also Open VSX, which is one public hosting by the Eclipse Foundation that runs this registry where you can publish your extensions and you can also consume extensions.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Why did you guys create the Open VSX registry?
We created it because there is currently no place where extension authors can upload their extensions so that everyone can consume them. Mm-hmm. There is the Microsoft Marketplace, but that is, according to their terms, they only allow Visual Studio products to consume the extensions that are there. And because there are other downstream Visual Studio Code users, we wanted to have a place where, those editors and VS Code, open source VS Code versions can access and download the extensions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people love the Microsoft VS Code kind of extension format and being able to almost customize their IDE and build on it pretty much indefinitely now. There's thousands of extensions there, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really important, it is. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them that. They're saying, well, is VS Code not open source, right? And it's important to understand that there is, the source code, most of the source code of VS Code is open source as an MIT license. But the binary you are downloading and running locally from their website, that is not open source. That is a Microsoft product and has a certain license attached to it, which includes the possibility to access that marketplace they have. And but there are, reasons. For instance, we at GitPod, we run VS Code as one of the IDEs you can access your dev environments with. And because that is not obviously the Microsoft product we can run in, but only the open source version, which is the same code, right. We don't have this license to access the marketplace, and the users of GitPod cannot, install those from the Microsoft marketplace. So there is a need to have this additional completely free marketplace. And there are other such cases as well, like the Thea project at Eclipse, like every product based on Thea, and also VS Codium, which is a pure open source version of VS Code. They also have the same problems or issues there.
Yeah, I remember running into that when I was working with the guys at Eclipse Che. We built for compatibility, and then you realize, we can't actually market that it works with the Microsoft Marketplace.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there's a lot of very useful stuff in that registry that is open source, right? So like all the extension developers, most extension developers develop their code in open source, publish it there to this free marketplace, and then it's not obvious that you are publishing your open source code into this situation where it cannot be freely used anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because you're the CEO of a product, but then you also support several projects, and I think that that's one of the questions that I get from a lot of founders when they start looking at open source is why is it actually important? Why is open source important for the product that I'm trying to bring to market? Could you share some insights? Why, as the CEO of GitPod, what's in it for you to support Open VSX and Thea as well?
I think this is specifically important for startups that build tools or products around for developers. Like in the developer world, having your stuff transparent and also openly share and allow contributions and collaborate. This is just builds a lot of trust, and I think this is just a key ingredient. Everyone expects that now also, but it also is super helpful because you can just work on the product in the open and you get feedback more timely rather than you work in the hidden and then you release something and then all of a sudden you get all this feedback and questions you haven't thought about before. And working continuously in the open it's just super helpful in a strategy wise. And of course also we want to solve a certain problem at GitPod. We want to solve the problem that you no longer need to massage and maintain your dev environments locally, but you can do something like dev environments as code and then script everything and then get it automated and even ephemeral, like so that you can start fresh dev environments all the time.
Yeah.
These dev environments, on the other hand, they consist of whatever people want to use, like all the open source tools out there, IDEs, whatnot, command line tools, and so all that is open source. And so we leverage that big time, like as a developer community as well as GitPod specifically, and we all build this together and build new stuff on top of that. So that's why it's super important for us to be involved, contribute back, and so on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, so I'm curious. What are the main communities that are using GitPod? Is it mainly front end developers? Is it full stack developers? Is it kind of just whoever?
For GitPod, it's full stack developers, I would say. We have lots of front end developers, web developers, but for just pure front end development, there are other solutions that work well in browsers. So GitPod is not so much a browser IDE than really the idea of automating your development environments in a way that it's reproducible and always, we say it always ready to code. So you have this peace of mind that on whatever project you are and in whatever branch and version, you can just spin up a dev environment, use it, and then when you're done, you throw it away and you don't have to massage it, maintain it or so. So I think as long as your stuff runs on Linux somewhat, you are happy. You should be happy with GitPod. So yeah, it's full stack developers.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've always been a big fan of the codified developer environments. Kind of saving that configuration time and the frustration. I think everyone's had a project they try and get it up and running on their machine, and for whatever reason it doesn't work because they have a different version of Java installed or whatever it might be, some sort of dependencies just not quite there. So, but cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I found it really, really interesting. Yeah, so one of my questions is also, I guess, as the CEO of GitPod, how do you kind of figure out how much resources you want to commit to an open source project? Does it depend on how valuable the project is to your product? Or is that something that's kind of baked in from the beginning?
Phew. It is not like there's not like this. Oh, we have to, contribute 30% or something like that on this open source project
Mm-hmm.
thinking. It's more like we want to build something, and then we figure, okay, how do we build this? And if it's an open source, like GitPod itself is open source, so
Mm-hmm.
it's probably open source. But if it's a third party project, then we are rather contributing there and building this stuff in there than building our own thing. It depends on,
Mm-hmm.
like, if it's a core strategic thing for GitPod, then we build it on our own, because we need to have a lot of control over that, and we
Right.
want to model the product. But for other things that are not the core value but just need to be solved, we are building that out in external project and try to collaborate with others.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So how many, I'm sure it's changed. It's kind of, Open VSX is fairly stable right now, and people are using it. But prior to really, Open VSX being spun out on its own as a standalone project, uh, how many developers did you have committed to it, and is there still a team that's committed to it at GitPod?
Actually, it is a bit complicated, but I'm also the
Hmm.
founder of another company, Typefox. And
Okay.
Typefox is a consulting service doing consulting for, around Eclipse tools, but also language servers and so on. And OpenVSX was built within Typefox.
Okay.
And we at GitPod, we are actually sometimes contracting, as a service provider, contracting Typefox to,
Hmm.
to, to do some things. We also have some engineers who, contribute to it, also, helping publishing extensions and so on. Um, but for most of the work, we are contracting Typefox, and others do that as well. Like the initial work that
Hmm.
Typefox did, it was also based on a contract from one of the clients.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense. I didn't know that. Um, so around OpenVSX, obviously it's not just Typefox and Gitpod. There's a community as well. How active is the community?
Um, I think it is decently active. Like there are a lot. Like the most important bit here is the are the publishers, like the developers who create VS Code extensions.
Hmm.
We make them aware that they can also publish, or should also publish, to the Open VSX marketplace in addition to the Microsoft marketplace, in order to reach more um, possible installations of their extension. And so they are pretty active doing that. We have now
Hmm.
1,000 extensions being published, and the number is growing. So that's cool. For the code base, we have mostly people who are interested in, when there were some performance problems recently, and so that's when you see, okay, there's a lot of interest. So you get lots of issues around this.
Hmm.
Not so much on the solution side, actually. Um, the code base is, it's pretty fleshed out, and it is really more or less the what we wanted to build is something that is similar to the Microsoft Marketplace, but you can
Hmm.
install it anywhere. And then you
Got
can
it.
host your VS Code extension. Like that's actually another use case for for Open VSX, is
Hmm.
you install it within your company network. Similar, like
Hmm.
you would have a Maven or an NPM registry or something like that.
Right.
And then you can there host your proprietary Eclipse extensions and sorry, Eclipse VS Code extensions, and you don't have to publish them publicly. Sometimes you don't
Hmm.
want to do that because maybe it doesn't make sense, or there's even information you don't want to share.
Yeah.
So actually, that's a that's an issue in the Microsoft VS Code repository that is very, very much upvoted. And so you can do that with Open VSX, install that. And then you can even use that as a proxy such that, it first goes to your local registry. And then if it doesn't find an extension there, it goes forward to Open VSX and pulls it from there if you want to.
Yep. Yeah, that would make sense. I know, especially, I don't know how prevalent this is anymore, but for developers who might work in like more of an air-gapped environment, but they still want to, have access to certain extensions to be more productive.
Yeah, there are surprisingly many companies who do that. Yeah.
So how do extensions actually end up in the registry?
I think the simplest way is use the command line tool. And we built a command line tool that is very, very similar to the command line tool that VS Code created, just to make it very, very simple and actually a no-brainer to publish an extension. What you need to do is you go to OpenVSX.org, you create an account, you sign the publisher agreement. That is an important bit. But then, you get a token. You create that on the website, and with that you can publish. So that's all. And it's one command.
Yeah, that's super easy. I know, I follow some of the open source hashtags on Twitter, and every once in a while you'll see people complaining about how difficult it can be to contribute to some open source projects. And I don't think that's ever intentional by the project itself, but I do know that you probably have to have some intentionality around trying to make it easy for developers to contribute. Have you, is that something that you took into consideration when you were, kind of designing the process, or did you just look at what Microsoft was doing and think it was a good idea to kind of stick with the same workflow?
No. The main reason we did that was to make it as easy as possible. Like, like every step you have to take there, we really considered, can we remove it? Like, how can we remove it? Yeah. So before we moved the OpenVSX registry to the Eclipse Foundation, there was, of course, less, formal requirements, legal requirements, and so on. So then there we really, it was just one command line. So we pasted it that, hey, you put that into your terminal and it's going to be published. So that's, it's no longer like that, but it's now also, we boiled it down to a 1-2 minute exercise, basically. Create an account, create a token, paste it into an environment variable, and you're done.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess from a developer perspective, why are developers publishing their extensions to Open VSX? Is there any benefit to them?
More reach, more feedback. You're building these extensions in order to have users usually, and so this allows you to reach more people, and then also if you build something in open source, maybe it gives you a good feel that it is also consumable without too many strings attached. Basically, like this.
Yeah. So what IDEs are actually using Open VSX? Is it pretty universal, or are there just kind of a handful right now that have adopted the format?
There are really only 2 base IDEs that can run VS Code extensions. That is VS Code or Thea, Eclipse Thea. So those are the 2. Because they need to implement the VS Code API, which is quite big. But from there are a lot of derivations, of course, like different VS Code is not customized a lot, but there is VS Code Yum, and then also VS Code runs in GitPod and so on. For Thea, there are more very different products because Thea is more customizable and is also built to to allow you to really build a customized product on top of that. Um, and yeah, so every Thea derived product basically is a candidate for that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. I know it's taken off like wildfire. Seems like everyone is kind of adopting it as the editor, the UI for their IDEs. So very cool. So I guess we've only got a handful of minutes left, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about some if you have any more interesting use cases for Open VSX or self-hosted marketplaces. What are you kind of seeing the future of the registry turn into?
I think the most important point is really the central registry being well known, and I would like to make it very normal for extension developers to publish to the Microsoft Marketplace as well as to the Open VSX Marketplace. So that is kind of the really most important goal. And
Yep.
then I think there might be interesting use cases to have your own hosting internally in corporations. You maybe use as a proxy or some sort of air gapped environment or so. I think that's interesting. Not my strategic most important goal, but I think that's a nice synergetic thing that could happen. And I mean, with GitPod, we also allow installing self-hosted in air-gapped installation, and so that goes well together. But I think the Open VSX org registry, populating that with always up-to-date extensions, that's the most important goal here.
Yeah. Is it easy for developers to keep their extension up to date in both places? Is it a pretty heavy lift, or is it?
No. You have typically npm publish script, and that picks up an environment variable for the token you need, and so you can automate all that. And with GitPod even more so, you could register the environment variables, and then whenever you publish something from GitPod, it would all be set up for you.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much. I know I've definitely learned a ton. It's cool to hear about Open VSX, and I saw the announcement that the Eclipse Cloud Development Tools Working Group put out when it was contributed to the Eclipse Foundation. So very cool. And yeah, thanks for building it. I know it's one of the more popular projects right now.
Yeah, let's make it more well known and help have more extensions in it.
Yeah, of course. So I guess the last thing before we hop off, if someone wants to get involved with Open VSX, where do they go, and how do they contribute?
Yeah, best place is GitHub project. There is I think it is Eclipse/OpenVSX, if I'm not mistaken. Just go there and start contributing. So it's all also that of course has a proper GitPod setup. So you just one click and you get a dev environment can start working, and we are happy to review the PRs, work on that together.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, thanks again for joining us, and everyone, we're looking forward to chatting with you. I'll drop the links that Sven just mentioned into the chat here, and come back and join us next month for episode 3.
Thanks, Jesse. Bye bye.
Yeah, of course. Bye, everyone.